I wanted to introduce Maureen O'Donnell. Maureen is with Arbor Family Counseling. So hopefully you guys have heard about Arbor. That's who we partner with here at Clarkson to provide our counseling services. So if you've been over to see Julie Brummer, she is an employee of Maureen's at Arbor, and that is also who we partner with as an EAP, so Employee Assistance Provider for faculty and staff. And so one of the many benefits that they offer to us is being willing to come to campus and have these types of discussions on different topics that we see as important. And so I'll let Maureen do a little bit more introduction for herself, but thank you everybody for being here.
Yeah, good afternoon everyone. I'm glad you got, thank you. I'm glad you got your lunch because, you know, it's a lot easier to listen when your stomach isn't competing, right? And so I just wanted to add it to what Sarah started to tell you about Arbor, that Julie is on site. Clarkson has contracted with us for her to be on site. And I think she's here now about 15 hours, and we hope to increase that. But you can go and see Julie as many times as you want. You can go see her different times of the year, different years for different problems, and there's no counting, there's no limit to how many times you can go talk to her. And that's an amazing benefit that that Clarkson is giving you. And I think it's awesome because I think that mental health is just as critical, especially when you're going through a transition of going through college. That's quite a transition time, and a lot of different stresses can happen, whatever your life situation is. But I wanted to add to what Sarah had said, that is each and every one of you can also contact us on our 24-hour number. And so Julie has office hours, I think 3 5-hour shifts a day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Okay, but you know, problems don't always happen on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday between 10 and 5, right? And so you can give us a call. It's 24 hours. You can give us a call anytime. We know that you're accomplishing a lot, and yet you're taking on a lot of stress as you go through this program. So we want to support that in whatever way we can. And if you have a moment, and this has happened with a lot of your fellow students already, if you have a moment late at night, on the weekend, in the middle of the holiday, whenever it is, and you need to be talked down or you just need to consult with somebody, call us. Call us. And if you think to yourself, oh, where's that number, or that lady came and she talked about it, I know you have that resource, and now would be, I don't know if it's a good enough reason to call. If you get to that point, it's a good enough reason to call. It's always a good enough reason to call. It always is. You're well worth it, okay? So you can call us, and that's unlimited. You can call us as many times as you want. You can call us all the time. Now, when you come and see us at Arbor, you get 3 free sessions, and the staff gets 5 free sessions. But that's per problem. So, you know, how many people here have more than one problem in a year, right? And so, yeah. So they say, how can you be so gracious and give us so much? It's because these aren't free pizza coupons. If they were free pizza coupons, you'd be using them twice a week, you know, as a student, maybe more, right? So people have less of a tendency, there's one for you right here, ma'am. People have less of a tendency to access counseling services because it's hard. It's a very humbling experience, and it's actually a very tough, courageous experience. People say if you go to counseling, that means you're weak, but actually it's the opposite. You've overcome your vulnerability, you've overcome your fears, and you decided enough is enough, I'm going to do something about this. And that's actually a very courageous moment, okay? So I invite you to take advantage for whatever may seem like a simple reason. Take advantage of the good services that Clarkson has offered to you, okay? So again, my name is Maureen O'Donnell. I've been with Arbor since its beginning, and we've been blessed to work with this campus since 1996. I think we've been working with Clarkson 10 years maybe at the most. But so often if somebody is in school here, but they're working over at Nebraska Medicine, you've got double benefits. You've got the 5 and the 3. So you can come and see us for 8 sessions. So it's kind of unstoppable, all the ways that you could call us and the reasons. And the number one reason why you want to call us kind of has a little bit of a focus in this presentation, right? Why when you're struggling emotionally, do you want to go talk to somebody? Some of it's obvious, but I think I'd like to describe it in this way. That when we create a safe space within us, or a safe space we can go to deal with things, safe of judgment, safe of ridicule, safe of somebody trying to fix us, who loves us, right? safe of somebody just over helping, but it just a safe space so we don't have to worry if we're going to bawl. We don't have to worry if we're going to get angry. We don't have to worry, but we just know somebody's going to has a good heart and is going to be there to help us. And as a professional, that could help us. That's a safe space. And you all should have that safe space in your life somewhere, whether it's coming to Arbor or with a friend. But more than that, you should have that safe space inside of you. Like it should be okay inside of you to deal with some of the feelings and some of the problems that you have. And if that's not true, then that's my number one invitation today, is to create that safe space, which means free of the tremendous criticism we can all give ourselves, right? Which means working on lowering that criticism and just letting yourself be human. Not very long from now, you're going to be tremendous medical helpers. You're going to make life and death difference in people's lives. You're going to make incredible difference. And if you're going to do that and remain healthy, there has to be a safe place inside it. Okay? I just want you to read that. It mirrors what I just said. The most vulnerable thing you can do is to speak out or think about the feelings that are the toughest. So if you start the process of doing that, it pulls some of your best strengths from within you that you just really aren't used to because you're not pulling from it at other times. And so the basis of suicide prevention is creating a space like this for other people. It's okay to be human. It's okay. And this is what I've learned. If there's any other counselors in the room or social workers or anybody in a related field, nurses maybe you've heard the same statement, but it's at the basis of suicide prevention. Anybody can tell you anything, and you react to them as though what they said is normal, then you're a safe person. If anybody can tell you anything, and you react to them with that, well, of course, that's normal. Like you were just shocked by a death. Of course you can't quit crying. Your husband of 50 years just died tragically of a heart attack. Of course you're upset and you're losing your focus. You just made the mistake that you feel is of your lifetime. Of course you're wondering if you should still be alive. Of course. Let's talk about it. And if your reaction is always that anybody can say anything and that it's okay, it's of course you're thinking this way, then that approach alone will prevent suicide. That coupled with the second one, and I'm kind of bottom lining the whole presentation here, but making it safe for anybody to say anything is fantastic. And the follow-up activity that helps prevent suicide is to follow up with them. Hey, we were having this conversation. Hey, you were telling me, I'm just checking back in. Especially if somebody's saying, I don't know if I want to be around. Sometimes I wonder about whether I should keep living. Of course, if they don't have an active plan, you're going to be following back up. Okay? So here's some of the myths of suicide prevention. And as you're reading this, I just want to ask with the show of hands, how many people have been to suicide prevention training before? Good. How many people in this room have heard someone say they're wondering if they should take their lives? Look around. We've got 80% of the room now. And how many of you felt very confident with your reaction to them? Good. Okay, so my hope is to add, break down the myths of suicide prevention. I've worked with some people who, I worked with the CEO of a treatment center once, and he told me about a golf outing with some friends. And he was like from here to the hole, and he hits his putt and it goes the way, right? And it just kind of like there was a path that way that was taking it. And the other guy on the green said, you were just so unlucky today. And he goes, oh no, I'm the luckiest man alive. He said, a year ago, I was sleeping under a bridge and was thinking about taking my life. That man didn't remain suicidal. He went on to a very successful life, made a lot of difference in other people's lives as well. Talking about suicide, this one is a really strong one. How many people have heard this one? That talking about it could encourage it? Yeah. Actually, it's the opposite. When you think about people being pent up with stress and pressure and despair, that just any release of that is very healthy for them. Any release of that, okay? Only people with mental disorders are suicidal. I've heard many stories, and I've talked to many people who do not have a mental health disorder who were thinking of it, who had attempted it, and who had completed it. None of them, had mental disorders. But of course, it also can go hand in hand with some mental disorders. Most suicides happen suddenly without warning. So probably my number one exposure to suicide is in the high schools, okay? And where right now we're in the middle of suicide season. And every day, twice a day, we're getting a call from a professional at a school that's saying, so-and-so's talking about it, can we send them in right now? And that's our every day now. And what I found when I went out and talked to groups of teenagers, because many times, unfortunately, I am talking with teenagers about their friend that committed suicide. Many times, they're crying, and part of their tears is that they were told. They were told that that person wanted to commit suicide, and they didn't take it serious. And so it's taking it very serious, and then lots of other steps that we'll talk about, okay? So many people tell multiple people that they're thinking about it. I've heard stories of people telling multiple people, going, attempting it. It was a failed attempt. They went back, talked about the failed attempt, and then went back and committed suicide again. So it's something to be taken very seriously, and it is something that's talked about. And today's whole purpose is to feel a little bit stronger about when it's presented to you or when you think and your gut's telling you it might be part of the picture. Someone who's suicidal is determined to die. That may be true of some people, but what I have heard from people who are suicidal over 34 years is that they experience a darkness. And that darkness goes from tough to despair. And their sight of their life, their view of their life, their perception of their life goes from like this to like this. And they don't see anything but darkness. And it hurts so bad, and they feel so unworthy and such a burden for the people around them that it makes sense to them to be gone and not be that burden anymore. So they don't want to die, but they want to release the burden. They want to release the pain. Like they're done with it. And it's pain that maybe you and I can't imagine. Can't imagine. So it's hard to rationally think to relieve the pain, It's a pain that maybe we don't know, So people who talk about suicide do not mean to do it. And I think I've already addressed that one. So if you're concerned about someone, you can't make someone suicidal by talking about it. So take that so address it. When you feel it in your gut, say something. And we're going to talk about some specific steps on how to do that. And some of you in this room have probably already done that. Good for you. And what I want you to do is we'll have a couple of exercises today. I want you to share
back when training.
how you have had confidence and how you have addressed situations. But having a conversation about suicide is not a conversation in passing. We are all so busy. We are all so overwhelmed every day. It's kind of the nature of things now. And if you think you're overwhelmed in school, wait till you get to work. You'll be overwhelmed as well. It's a light conversation, a light hope in the middle, but it's about not letting the overwhelmed be in charge. It's about insisting that you take care of yourself, that you take moments that you otherwise think, oh, I have to do this, you don't have to do everything. But taking moments for yourself, but also taking moments with others. And I'm a real strong extrovert, and I come from a family of 9. So my favorite time is when the family's together, right? At least it used to be. Now my favorite time is one-on-one with every single sibling, especially since my brother died. Then that really upped I want that one-on-one time with people, because you don't get, in the middle of, 9 siblings, is like, there's at least 35 people there every time we sit down, right? And you don't get really good quality one-on-one because somebody walks between you or, somebody interrupts you. So to really make as a goal that you kind of have that downtime, and you create that downtime, which is safe space for other people to talk to you. And that downtime, that safe space might be while you're waiting for a class to begin together. Like it doesn't have to be off the track. It can be in the middle of the track where they're studying and you're studying, and you go up and sit next to them. So it's so important to take time with everyone that are having a tough time. Everyone. I don't know about you, but I often Like when I'm going to sleep at night or when I'm just kind of driving or different things, I think of people that I'm concerned about, right? So yesterday, my grandson got his first shots. And so I was praying and I was thinking about my daughter and her husband and, you know, that he was going to have a reaction. And his young parents, they were going to be afraid. So it's just, you know, and I checked in with them and through text could be the beginning. You know, you can do it if you can't talk to them, right? So it's so important to take that time to listen. And it's really hard. Remember, we're all overwhelmed, so it's really hard to do that. But it's through that deep listening. Like if that's a priority, in the depths of their despair, it's in that deep listening that they'll tell you stuff they wouldn't normally tell you. And if you're in that deep listening and there's a little bit of silence, leave it there. Leave it there because that's when in session, and those of you who are professionals in session, that's when the really good stuff comes out. Is if you've waited through the silence a little bit. And so be a contrary. Don't fill the silence by taking care of them and bringing something else up. Leave the silence there with a smile and be ready when they bring something else up, okay? So if you're concerned about someone, hearing their thoughts or feelings is tough. It's tough. How many people have heard of it, right? You're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? You go into a bit of a adrenaline overload when you hear that. But it doesn't mean that it's a bad idea to bring it up, to ask about it. Only that it's a process, and it's not an easy process. And that's why so many people respond with trying to fix people who are depressed, who are anxious, who are suicidal. They want to fix them because they feel so overwhelmed by the information or by the way that they're feeling. So you may feel the need to change their perspective or tell them how to think or tell them what to do to be happy. But really just your listening, letting them get it out is the most powerful thing. You don't want to accidentally tell them, don't commit suicide because everyone will. You make everybody feel terrible. That's a little bit more guilty. It's like, gee, I don't want to lose you. You see what I mean? The difference in those two things. So it's not about your pearls of wisdom. A lot of people ask me in my whole 34 years, tell me the words to say. And it's not in the words that you say. We'll give you some words, but it's not in the words you say. It's in how you listen. And you don't change the subject. And you put your phone down, face down. And you kind of push away the distractions. And if somebody else comes up to talk to you, you keep your eyes on them if they're talking seriously, which tells the other person, not now, not now, okay? So it's not about your pearls of wisdom. It's about showing genuine compassion, engagement, and listening deeply while suspending your reactions. Because you're going to have those reactions, right? Just suspend them and think, okay, any one thing I have to say right now is not as important as letting them speak, because what you're doing is communicating value at a time when they feel devalued. They feel like they should be gone because they don't have any worth, okay? And that's critical. So starting a conversation. It's important to understand that a person considering suicide is in deep psychological pain and is most interested in escaping that pain, which I talked about earlier. So if you've given them that silence, if you said, hey, let's sit down, how's your day today? And we'll give you some other conversation starters in just a minute. What you're asking next, if they told you about the pain, is tell me about that pain. Tell me what it is. I'm anxious about a test. I feel like I'm going to flunk out. I'm worried, just whatever it might be. But let them talk about the pain. Ask directly. And a good way to start, and I'm going to go through the slide, then you guys are going to practice for a minute, okay? And some of you, I realize, have already done it. So if you're pairing up with somebody, determine if one of you has already done it and is comfortable with it, let the other person give that practice, okay? But first, point out your worrying cues. Listen, I've been trying to get together with you lately, and you canceled all of our plans. Seems like, you're very preoccupied and concerned. I noticed that when we go out together, you don't really eat like you used to. Are you worried about something? You said the other day when we talked that there's no point going on. I really want to hear more. I want to hear what you have to say about that. Okay. Just express your concern. So you're pointing out what you notice. This is a formula. Point out what you notice. Express your concern. I care about you. I noticed this, and I care about you. Normalize what you're noticing. I know that sometimes when people are, not answering their phone at all, canceling all plans, sometimes they're going into a dark place. I had a friend once who was suicidal who wasn't responding to me. And I know that that's a normal sign of that. Again, normalize it like, yeah. Ask directly. I'm asking as I want to know if you're thinking this. I'm asking about all these deep feelings you're telling me about. I'm asking if in the middle of all that, are you thinking about suicide? you know? Okay, so I'm gonna ask you to pair up, these twos. I'm gonna give you some more steps, but I'm gonna ask you to practice this first one. And so what I'm gonna ask you to do in the practice is, I'm gonna ask you to identify
I'll be on
what
this
you
for an hour.
and then express your care, okay? And then if you feel like in your practice, the person's giving you something deep enough, something desperate enough, okay, are you thinking about this? Okay, so what you noticed that they've been doing lately that made you worried, and then just tell them you're concerned about it, okay? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You're first. You're first.
Yeah. What's stressing you out? It's an understandable stress. Yeah. pretty common stress around these times. It's hard to know until you know, and everyone's different.
So if you haven't already, go ahead and switch to the next person, okay? If you haven't already, switch to the next person.
Tired and not very hungry, but I think I'll be okay. It'll pass.
Okay, come on back.
Really, yeah.
I want to just take a few minutes and respond to anybody that, if any questions came up when you practiced. Any thoughts or questions or like, what would I say? Go ahead. That is an excellent question. You straight up ask them, hey, are you thinking about taking your own life? Or do you let them kind of come to that point and tell you? I think that's the reason why we've got that down at the bottom. I think that there's some conversation before that. They told you something before that. They told you, like, I'm just really in a bad place. I don't know how I'm gonna, they started to reveal to you some despair because if you've been listening. You're like, I can talk to you, I can talk to you, I can talk to you, you're gonna judge me. And you ask. And that's a big thing you ask. And then there's like, actually, what's not even in last thing? That's this word. In fact, I don't want to do all this. Say, then that's where you would have a clue. You say, I'm worried about you. You're not thinking about hurting yourself. You're not thinking about taking your life off. You see how the conversations are right at that point? However, if you were alarmed enough about something, you get screaming. And it was to start a conversation, then you would start out with me. I don't know why, but I get a scream point. I care about you, I'm concerned. You're not thinking about, you started that way. But usually there's going to be some other conversation. Big question. What else came up? What other questions? Okay, I put up here on the next slide some actual conversation starters. Are you okay as Australia put that together as an actual campaign? And it's like, because people are texting something, right? And so I'll self-profess, I check in with a lot of people by text. I have too many people I can't call them all, and I can't be face-to-face with them. But I am face-to-face with the ones I'm most concerned about, right? And I'm checking up the most, but I'm texting people, asking about things a lot. And I've heard some amazing stories around people texting somebody while they were suicidal. And it makes a difference, yeah. So, notice you don't seem yourself lately, you seem less chatty. I've been thinking about what you said, I've noticed such and such. I had a manager that referred someone to me once, and he said to her after 3 days, he's like, you are the sunshine of the department, and you've not been smiling 3 days. What's going on with you? Like, it's not none of my business, but I'm concerned. And she just unloaded, she referred straight to me. At the end of the day, we figured out she not only was suicidal, she had a plan. She was going to go home that night and do it. I can't tell you anything else about the situation, but that's how it came up. Hey, you're this one. Hey, usually we talk. Or I went, yes.
So, like, when you, the last question, when you say that, if someone says, no, hey, I'm just really busy. But I'm like, they're just like almost making excuses. Have you seen that before? And like, how far do you try? Like, how far, like if someone, I said, oh, you're not yourself lately. I'm okay. I just got this going on. You're not yourself. So, they keep making excuses for that. For what? What do you do then?
Then you say, I'm concerned. I just,
I hope that you're not contemplating this. I just want to make sure that.
I want to make sure things aren't go bad. I just want to make sure, like I'd rather embarrass myself by asking too much than not ask. You kind of ask for forgiveness. But you check and you just say, no, just check. I care. Like I got you. I got your back. I'm gonna check back in. Okay. Good question. Anybody else? So you're observing, you're telling them what you observed, and you're telling them that you're concerned. I think this isn't just for somebody that you think it might be suicide. I think it's everybody, right? It's everybody. And then you give them permission to ask you, oh, Maureen, you haven't been smiling the last 3 days. Like, I'm kind of concerned. And I've had, I have a really great, she just retired a couple years ago, but my business partner, she wouldn't pull no punches. You don't look good today. What's up? Tell me. I'm like, well, thank you, first of all. But what was nice about her is she pulled no punches, and so you trusted it. You trusted it. Once they got used to how direct and even how brass she could be at times, then I trusted her with everything, right? So, listening. So it's all in the listening. It's all in the listening. People tell people all the time when they're desperate. They tell them in passing. They make small comments. So it's slowing down the conversation. And whoa. Wait a minute. You said this back here. You said that something about you're not sure about going forward. Like, tell me about that. Is that okay if I ask? Always ask permission. Is that okay if I ask? So validate. Tell them your feelings make sense. Like, well, of course, yeah, of course you're feeling that way. Anybody who's as overwhelmed as you and dealing with all that you're dealing with, of course. And you've been telling me that you're depressed for some time, of course. At some point, it gets this far down. Like, I'm here with you. I'm here with you. This expression, communication, and connection can lead to a decrease in their suicidal thoughts. I've heard so many stories. People tell me face to face, I was thinking about it. Somebody checked in on me. I was actually going to go home and do it. Somebody checked in on me. Somebody stopped and said, hey. And since the stories that are crazy of somebody just kind of connected with me and, they had no clue, but they connected with me and it gave me what I needed to not have as deep a despair. So ask open-ended questions. Being curious shows that they have some value. Remember, they're not feeling valued. They're not feeling their worth. And that's why they want to take their life. And that they have feelings and opinions, that their feelings and opinions matter. Also, if you just keep being curious about people, then you'll understand them all better too. Paraphrase what they're saying, but truly you're trying to listen. And once somebody says something out loud, they hear themselves and they deal with it. If they keep it inside and they don't say it out loud, then they keep pushing it away until it just kind of gets the best of them, right? Get pushed into the next day. But after feeling hurt, many people will de-escalate. And a conversation can turn. Plans like, what? You're going to take a bath? You're going to call your sister? You're going to talk to your husband or your wife? What are you going to do? Do I need to be worried about you? I'm going to check in tomorrow. No, I'm not going to do anything to hurt myself. I'm going to check in tomorrow. Okay? I promise you I'm not going to hurt myself. If you had a conversation like that and the person, you did everything you could to check in, I promise you, no, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything. And your gut tells you, I just don't feel good about this. Then you tell them that. Say, then my gut's just screaming. And you leave the silence. And then that sometimes will open up at a deeper level. But you can't force them. I think that's what you were asking, Trish. You can't force them, right? So how do I assess? How do you know to assess whether they're suicidal or not? Especially if they're not coming out and telling you, right? It helps to assess how acute it is. And if they're telling you, they're starting to tell you, and you said, I'm worried, I'm just, boy, I'm listening to you and I'm feeling sad for you. I'm feeling really heavy, sadness just listening to you. That helps them identify that. They get to the point where they're telling you they're thinking about it and they have a plan. The more immediate, if they have a plan, then you'll be more immediate, more forceful. That's a plan. They have a plan in place. Is it the plan lethal? I think 123 people a day commit suicide now, and women are 2 times as likely as men to, you guys probably heard the statistics, 2 times as likely to attempt suicide. Men are 3 times as likely to commit suicide. They're more lethal in their attempts. Okay? So is the plan lethal? And what does that mean to you guys? Anybody want to tell me what an example of a lethal plan would be? Gun. What's that? Hanging themselves. I hear that one a lot. I was talking with a teenager who had harassed another teenager. That stuff that can happen in schools, which is pretty unrelenting with this other teenager. And the other teenager committed suicide. And so the one teenager came in that was harassing her, came in to talk to me, and I went on site, and she was in an awful place. And kind of got her de-escalated a little bit. And then she just hit this point where she's like, can't forgive myself. This is mine. I can't do this anymore. Can't talk anymore. I can't forgive myself. And she ran out of the building, out of the office, out of the building. But before she left, she said to me, I think it was right before she went into the unforgiveness piece, she said, where the railroad tracks are in this community? And I said, yeah. And she goes, there's that place, right? And she described this place. And we talked a little bit longer, she got a little bit calmer, and she got to that place of unforgiveness and bolted. It was like, called the principal, called the school counselor. I said, this is where you need to drive to find her. And they literally ran up on the train tracks. They caught her, and they all tumbled. It was like a high heel, tumbled off the rail tracks. And I said to the principal and said to the school counselor, well, if you don't do anything else in your professional life, like this is incredible what you just did. This kid was going to sit there until the train came. And she said, the school counselor said back to me, the principal said something altogether different, but the school counselor said, I don't want to do this anymore. I didn't sign up for this, But the principal said, this kind of something very similar. And so how lethal is the plan? Being in front of a train is some people's plan. Do they have access to this plan? That, it's obvious what was going to happen. My head was spinning when she just got up and left, but it became obvious quite soon. Oh, she's going to go do this right now. And so now, do they plan on using it in the future? Okay, that story ties all those things together. How to help? Let the person talk. Let them talk. Let them talk. Let them talk. Listening is your best answer. When talking it out, listening is your best response, far better than any words you will use. And you might, the whole time you're listening, you might be struggling with, oh, what am I going to say? But the whole time you're listening, that's the best answer. That's the best answer. So reduce their isolation. If the person's at risk, then stay with them as they work through the toughest moments. Supervise if the person has an active plan. Stay with them until they reduce their suicidal plans or until they go for help, like family member comes to get them and takes them for help. Or we've had situations on campus here where managers need to walk somebody to ER. And you have the blessing of an ER department that's across the street, right? And then you contract with them like that. We had one of our counselors walk with somebody to the ER and stayed with them until a family member, and contracted with them that they would stay there and not leave the ER until a family person came. And then get help for them. This might include calling a therapist. They're in a place of immobilization where they can't take the next steps. So you figure out the next steps. These are them, and you take them for them. You take them for them. You call the therapist. You get hold of Julie, or come and see Julie. You call the 24-hour number. You take them across the street to the ER. you sit there with them, you call their family member, you tell their family member, you don't leave them alone, there's an active plan that's lethal, okay? And the intervention is, I think this is kind of similar, ask directly about it. You're always asking directly once the depression has really been revealed to you. And if they say, yeah, I've been thinking about it, ask them if they have a plan. If they have thoughts but no plan, then that's when you help them call the counselor. Okay, so you've got the more acute, you're walking them somewhere, you're staying with them, or you're calling a counselor with them. Follow up, checking back in with a person who's deeply depressed and continue to do so until the depression is lifted, prevent suicide. Just checking back in with them. How are you now? How's today? We deal with people who are in grief, right? Who've lost somebody suddenly. We're really good at checking back in with that. Do the same if they've revealed deep depression. If you're feeling overwhelmed by it, then that's when you're encouraging them talking to other people. Okay? Yeah.
So, say for example, I have a good friend and I'm there and she's telling me I've thought about it, but I don't know. Can I say, okay, we called your counselor and then I'll see you later and go home?
So
or should I stay there until I know she's with their counselor? Or like if I had a student and they say this to me and Julie's not here.
Right.
Should I stay with that student until they get on the phone with Arbor counseling? Should I say, I'm going to put in a referral and leave that student there? I think that's where the whole,
Is it?
where it's like, when do I let them go? When do I break that? What does it say for me to let them go when they told me,
I'm
those
thinking about it.
intimate,
Yeah.
I don't feel safe with myself.
Right.
So I know there's no
There's
A or B, C, D answer, but just
well
some
the
guidance.
first comment you made was they're saying I'm thinking about it, but I don't know. And that would be let's talk some more about this. And tell me about that. Like I'm here. Doesn't matter where I need to be right now. I'm here. And so I want to hear this, and you want to hear it out for how acute it is. They say, well, I've thought about it. I've had a little bit of a history of depression, and I do think about it at times. But I can tell you now that doesn't mean I'm going to do it. I have no plan. Do you have a therapist? That's when it's, do you have a therapist? But if they don't have that wherewithal to say, I'm not going to do this. I've had thoughts, but it is not going to happen. They can't verbally tell you that, then they're not safe. Okay? And then you stay with them. You stay with them, you bring them to Success Center. If the Success Center is closed, you stay with them, you pull a family member in, you walk them over to the ER. You see, so it's just how sick, how much are they planning on it? And can they tell you? Because I've had people tell me, I can't tell you how much. So then that's when I send them to the ER. Okay, if they're there with a family member. And that's why I said, you've got the ER right here. And so if they're telling you they're thinking about it, but they're like, and that's the worry. People tell me a lot. I don't tell people I have these thoughts. I've had these thoughts much of my life. I don't tell people I've had these thoughts because they would freak out. They've taken me to the yeah. But I think there's a difference between being a stalker and walking with them. Yeah, and I think that not wanting to be a stalker, not wanting to intrude, not wanting keeps us all back. And my invitation, that's why in that one slide it said, this is difficult. This is not easy to hear this stuff. You're a good friend when you're hearing stuff and you're like, I don't know. That's kind of tough to hear. But that's the assessment piece. Like, how strongly are you thinking of it? Do you have a plan? You've thought about hanging yourself? Do you have a rope at home? Do you have a gun at home? Do you have the pills? How close, can you tell me that you're not going to do this? And even if you're asking that and they're like, no, I'm not going to do it, you can say, I'm not feeling good. Let's bring somebody else into this. Will you forgive me? If just for your safety, will you forgive me if we do that? And it's treated as, I'm with you, I'm not going to leave you alone in this kind of thinking, okay? But if they say something like, I have had thoughts, I did attempt when I was in 7th grade, I have had thoughts, but I'm nowhere near where I was then. Then you can say, okay, well, who are you talking to about this? Are you seeing a counselor? Hey, come into my office, I'll call Arbor with you. And then that's a great thing. That's a great thing because they probably have thought about, I should go to counseling, but I'll just burden that counselor. You see what I mean? So you're doing a great thing by just here. And I ask managers all the time, peers all the time, just sit down, pull your cell phone out, And I'll give you the number. It's on this last slide here, okay? But help them make that call. That's really critical. Okay. This is suggestions from someone who's had suicidal thoughts. It may not be obvious at all. I had a great job. Sorry. Had a great job, a loving husband, supportive family. The time of suicidal thoughts took hold and the depression began to lift. Most of my time was spent contemplating ways to escape the pain. A huge part of my anxiety was living with suicidal thoughts. So some people, we talk about suicide today as though it is something that people sometimes get those thoughts, or they might arrive to a point. Many people are living with those thoughts for years. For years. Many people tell me about hearing a voice in their head that says, just do it. For years. For years. And so realize with some people, it might not be just an event or a day. So that walking with them, and then you have to take care of yourself, right? You're checking in with them, but you can't become hopeless while you're checking in with someone who's hopeless. You got to keep yourself strong. That's critical. That's critical. And what do you do that keeps you strong, right? So it was a huge part of her anxiety was living with suicidal thoughts, but not being brave enough to articulate them with loved ones. So she lived in the shadows, and this is someone who attempted, but didn't complete it. And so they're afraid to tell people because they're afraid they're going to chase you away. I had a good friend from high school that told me 15 years ago, Maureen, I don't tell you really bad stuff because I'm going to lose you as a friend. It's like, she suffers with bipolar. And I said, no, it's not going to happen. So since then, she'll tell me things and sometimes surprise me with the things she tells me. And I have to adjust myself. I have to go home to take care of myself after she's told me those things, okay? And so it seemed an enormous burden to bring others into that frightening world. A therapist told me a story once about how he walks to work every day. That's how he takes care of himself. One day he's walking to work and his client drives by and she honks and he waves, but she don't come to her session. She didn't show up. Like he was headed there, she was headed there. And so then he checks in with her and he said, why didn't you, like you saw me and you honked at me, why didn't you come to your session? And she said, you look like you were having such a great walk. I don't want to ruin your day. This is somebody who's in despair, right? When my family eventually broached the subject, it was an incredible relief. We think we're intruding, we think we're judging, we think we're imposing. It becomes an incredible relief. Not just about suicidal thinking, but about when somebody's not feeling good and they're depressed and they think, you've asked me 3 times now and you must really care, so you want to know, I'm going to tell you, okay? And that's an incredible relief. Somebody who's real, somebody who will listen to me. Most of us with suicidal thoughts have a crippling fear that our lives are on the verge of falling apart. And a loop of negativity is often playing on repeat in our minds. So encourage your loved one to express those thoughts out loud or in writing. The more they'll express those fears head on, the less power they'll have. The more they can tell you, I'm thinking about something awful, the less that thought has power in their mind. The more that they keep it secret, the more it has power. I know it's a tall task, but your unwavering confidence in your loved one's recovery is essential. Find the strength to look them in the eye and tell them that they'll get through this and that you got their back. And until they get back to their old self, and tell them, this is your brain. Your brain a lot of depression and a lot of anxiety is a brain chemical issue. So your brain, you're not faulty as an individual. Your brain is playing tricks on you. And I cannot underscore the importance of you reassuring your loved one. You're not going to give up on them. You're not going to leave them alone. When your loved one's depressed, they know they're asking a lot and feel guilty. Your loved one realizes they're pushing you away, and it breaks their heart, but they're pushing you away because they don't want to lose you, which is that, your loved one knows you cannot wave a magic wand, but that you desperately wish you could. And that is the most irritating thing with people who are suicidal is they're just trying to fix me, okay? What matters most is that you simply walk with them through this valley and that you never give up on them. So when you encourage someone to ask for help and seek solutions, you help them become solution-oriented. This increases their self-regulation and overall resiliency, leading someone with a stronger mental attitude. In doing this, you also positively affect the generations that follow that person. Here's some additional resources. They have great, great guides, great, breaking down the conversation like I did today. And this is about Arbor. Write down our number if you don't have it. This is 330-0967. Write this down. you call right now. You call and you leave this class. It's here for you 24 hours a day. And that's our website. And people are contacting us through our website all day long, every day. So, last questions. I really admire you all for being here. This is an overwhelming topic. This is a tough topic. It's a very, very scary topic to broach. So I admire you for being here. And so the number one thing I want you to take out is approach them, express your concern, your observations, and then listen. And then follow up, follow up, follow up. You have to have the confidence for them because they have no confidence in that moment. Okay? Any last questions? You guys can call us. You can come up afterwards. Otherwise, thank you and have a good day. Okay?